My childhood friend stood me up. When I was on the phone with him, I heard the girl who had confessed to him many times and been rejected each time teasing loudly. Everyone, quiet down. Victor's fiancée is calling. Victor spoke lazily. Stop messing around. Emma isn't my fiancée. Oh, then what is she? Just my little sister. Later, when I reunited with Victor in Singapore, a friend looked toward the person standing in the drizzling rain with an umbrella, waiting for me, and teased that I had gained another pursuer. I replied, "Stop messing around, that's my brother." Chapter 01. Emma. Someone confessed to Victor on the confession wall again. This is the third one this month. I had just come out of the bathroom when my roommate started gossiping to me. She held up her phone and showed me the post on the confession wall. This time was different from the previous few. This girl had confessed using her real name. She posted a photo of Victor playing basketball. The young man wore a white basketball tank top, with a red sports headband around his forehead. When he ran, his arms spread slightly. He was full of vitality. Victor was handsome and unruly. Ever since he was little, girls had liked him. During middle school and high school, many girls had confessed to him, but he rejected them one by one. Although his rejections were very direct, there were still girls who refused to give up. Later, Victor grew so annoyed that one night, he knocked on my door in the middle of the night, half leaning against the door frame. He smiled at me. "Emma, be kind and do me a favor." "Yeah." Under the dim yellow light of the hallway, his smile was casual and unrestrained. The pair of eyes looking at me seemed as bright as if stars had fallen into them. I agreed to Victor's request. After that, the news that Victor and I had once had a childhood engagement spread, and only then did his pursuers finally stop. Because of that, throughout our youth, the names Emma and Victor always appeared tied together. Right now, someone had replied to the girl who confessed. "Girl, the one you're trying to fish for is Victor, a junior from the law school, but I'd advise you to give up. He already rejected 2 this month." Another one confessing to Victor. "Give up. He's already taken. His girlfriend is Emma, a junior from the School of Computer Science. She's a top student, and the 2 of them even have a childhood engagement." Girl, what era is this? People still have childhood engagements? If you don't believe it, go ask the people involved yourself. Anyway, Victor will reject you then too. Girl, then I'll go. How do you know I won't succeed? My roommate clicked her tongue. I'm so jealous of freshmen. They really have so much energy. And they're brave too. I glanced at the girl's name and made no comment. I only urged my roommate, "If you don't go shower now, the lights will be turned off." My roommate let out a low cry and hurriedly gathered her clothes to go to the bathroom. After getting into bed, I saw a message from Victor. "Our dorm is having dinner together tomorrow night. I'll come pick you up and we'll eat together." The corners of my lips curved slightly, and I replied, "Okay." Chapter 02. After the big afternoon lecture ended, Victor was waiting for me outside the classroom. I knew everyone in Victor's dorm. The 2 who had girlfriends were also familiar faces. When we arrived at the destination, I saw an unfamiliar girl had been added. Victor led me over to sit down. As he did, he kicked the leg of the boy beside the girl and teased, "Not bad. Justin, you're off the market?" Justin looked troubled. Before he could speak, the girl beside him propped up her chin, stared at Victor, tilted her head, and smiled. "Can't someone bring me to dinner if I'm not his girlfriend?" Her gaze slid to my face, then moved away after only an instant. But I did not miss the provocation hidden inside. Her hostility came out of nowhere. Justin guiltily glanced at me, then introduced the girl with an awkward smile. "This is Camila. She was my junior in high school and is also a freshman at Z University's law school. She heard my dorm was having dinner today and came along to make friends." Camila. That sounded a little familiar. Camila went around me and reached her hand toward Victor beside me. "Hello, Victor." Victor leaned back, one hand resting behind the back of my chair. He seemed not to have heard Camila's words. Instead, he turned his head and leaned close to my ear, asking, "You're sitting right in front of the air conditioning vent. Are you cold?" I nodded once. Then Victor gripped both sides of my chair and lifted it upward. He moved me half an arm's length away from Camila. Camila's hand remained suspended in midair, and her smile froze too. In the end, It was Justin who stepped in to ease the awkwardness. Only belatedly did I realize why I had found the name Camila familiar. The girl who had confessed using her real name on the confession wall was named Camila. Throughout the meal, Camila kept finding all kinds of excuses to talk to Victor. No matter how close Victor and I appeared, Camila seemed not to care. After the dinner ended, I had just been about to stand up when I saw Camila stretch out one leg, blocking my path. Her eyes curved as she stared at me for a few seconds. Then she tilted her head to look at Victor beside me, her smile growing wider. I heard you two had a childhood engagement. I'm really curious. How did that happen? Was it like an adult engagement? Victor slowly lifted his eyes. For the first time that night, he looked directly at her. His body leaned toward me, and the corners of his lips curled as he smiled without quite smiling. What the hell does that have to do with you? Chapter 03. Camila had great perseverance, at least so far, compared with the girls who had pursued Victor in the past. She had more perseverance than any of them. After being rejected, she still hovered around him. Once, Victor and I agreed to meet at the basketball court. When I arrived, Victor was shooting hoops. Camila came running over from who knew where and, like a surprise attack, snatched the basketball away in one move. She wore a short white dress and a red baseball cap. With a toss of her head, her ponytail brushed past Victor's chin. She smiled charmingly, with a slightly coquettish tone. Victor, teach me how to play basketball. Victor frowned, visibly impatient. If you want to learn, go find third brother. Don't bother me. I want you to teach me. The ball belongs to Justin. Return it to him yourself. After leaving those words behind, Victor ran toward me. Camila held the ball with one hand and looked over. When her gaze met mine, it was indifferent. Nothing like the enthusiasm from moments earlier. She was a very pretty girl, bright and dazzling. Although Victor had encountered prettier girls before, he had still turned a blind eye to them. But remembering the look in Camila's eyes when she looked at me, I still could not help mentioning, Camila confessed to you on the confession wall. The person beside me did not speak for a long while. I had just turned my head, when I suddenly met Victor's face. The tips of our noses almost touched. I instinctively held my breath, falling into his eyes without blinking. Victor bent slightly at the waist, and amusement appeared in his dark eyes. He reached out and swiftly scraped the bridge of my nose. What? Do you really think of me as your fiancé now? Are you jealous? It was clearly an extremely light touch. Yet my body stiffened for a moment as if electricity had passed through it. My face suddenly grew hot. I abruptly stepped back. The evening wind lifted the hair on Victor's forehead, making his features look vivid and striking. I turned my gaze away from his and unscrewed a bottle of water to take a sip. Against my heart, I replied, "No." Victor roughly ruffled my hair twice, his tone carrying a smile. "Little brat." In the distance, the sunset dyed the edge of the sky blue purple, magnificent and dazzling. At this moment, my heart softened beyond measure. Chapter 04. Victor and I were not childhood friends on equal footing. I was an orphan adopted by his family. In 4th grade, my mother, who was a journalist, went abroad and unfortunately died there. In my first year of middle school, my father, a firefighter, died in the line of duty. Overnight, I became a snowball passed among relatives, rolling from one household to another. I failed to stay in any family for more than a week. In the end, it was my father's former comrade in arms, Victor's father, who brought me home. Having just transferred from the south to the north for school, I could not clearly distinguish certain nasal sounds in Mandarin. On the first day I entered class, I made a joke of myself during my self-introduction. Back then, I was out of place. My face turned red from embarrassment, yet I still stubbornly raised my head and looked at the classmates laughing at me. Victor did not laugh. He was a pure northerner, but when the teacher called on him to answer a question, he also deliberately confused those nasal sounds. When everyone laughed again, he grinned and went around kicking those people one by one. "Watch me kick all your butts rotten." I knew he was kindly helping me out of the embarrassment. That night, I quietly slipped a thank you letter through the crack under his door. I never expected Victor to directly knock on my door, holding up the letter as he raised his brows. "A love letter?" "No. Just teasing you," with a casual toss. The letter returned to my arms. Emma, how about I teach you Mandarin? During my gloomy and dim girlhood, Victor was like a beam of light, suddenly flashing into existence with a crackle, driving away the haze. Chapter 05. For a very long time, wherever Victor was, Camila would always appear. She did not directly state her intentions. She simply showed her face in front of Victor, then said hi openly and generously. She was not coy at all, nor did she linger. Gradually, I did not know when it began, but I discovered that every time I met Victor, whenever we reached a crowded place, his gaze would subconsciously wander through the crowd. At first, I did not take it to heart, until once in the cafeteria, we ran into Camila chasing behind a tall boy. She held up her phone in one hand, laughing as she walked, while the boy remained cold and gave no response. When they passed by the table where Victor and I were sitting, the boy lightly glanced over, perhaps sensing the boy's gaze. Camila also looked over, but only for a few seconds. Then her expression returned to normal, and she turned back as if she had not seen Victor or me. She pressed her palms together, smiling brightly. Oscar, just give me your contact information. Hearing that name, I looked at the boy a couple more times. Oscar replied, we are not relatives, not friends, and not from the same school. There is no need for us to contact each other at any time. Then we can start being friends from now on. No need. Even after the two of them left, Camila did not spare another glance in our direction. Judging from the situation, she had switched targets. Only after they walked far away did I realize that the person beside me was especially quiet today. I looked toward Victor. His eyes were lowered, and I could not see the emotions inside them. Only the chopsticks in his hand moved mechanically, again and again, picking up green peppers he usually disliked eating. After eating who knew how many bites, Victor suddenly stood up. His jawline was taut. I'm full. I'm going back to the dorm first. I immediately got up, but in the short time it took me to return my tray, Victor was already gone. Only then did I discover that he could actually walk so fast. A strange feeling flashed through my heart, so quick that I could not catch it. Some days later, I went out with my roommate and ran into Camila, who was returning to the dormitory building. She was talking and laughing with her friends. One friend teased, ooh, why did you suddenly change your phone charm? Another girl winked suggestively. Do you even need to ask? Someone gave it to her. Obviously. No way. Camila, did you win Victor over? Weren't you chasing that Oscar from the School of Computer Science a while ago? Camila played with her phone absent-mindedly. A silver anti-drop phone chain was wrapped around her slender wrist, with a string of red paper cranes dangling from it. As she brushed past us, she smiled freely. Don't talk nonsense. I'm still single right now. Victor even gave you the same phone chain he uses. Rounding up. Doesn't that mean he's willing to be with you? What? Or is it that you can't bear to let go of that guy from computer science? What kind of question is that? Can't our Camila gladly accept both? Wait, doesn't Victor have a childhood engagement girlfriend? You still don't know? Someone from Victor's dorm asked. That girl from computer science isn't his fiancée. She's just his little sister. He only used her as a shield before. Oh, so that's how it is. My roommate Lily linked arms with me. She did not ask too much and only muttered softly. What is this? Deliberately gossiping in front of you? Is the law school that idle? Spending all day on love and hate drama? They are quite idle. My gaze swept over that phone chain. I had once given Victor the same phone chain. I had even made it by hand. When I arrived at the classroom, I took out my phone. A little after 7 that morning, Victor had unusually sent me a morning. I replied with a. He had never sent me good morning before. At home, when we went to school, I was always the one who got up early and went to knock on his door. The conversation between Victor and me stopped at that question mark. He did not reply. He gave no explanation at all. Not even a simple sent to the wrong person. I scrolled up through my chat history with him. This week, the number of times we had chatted had dropped sharply. Chapter 06. All the way until evening self-study ended, Victor did not come looking for me, and there was still no message from him on WeChat. Last weekend, he had made plans with me to eat late-night snacks together tonight. He had said he would come wait for me after evening self-study, afraid that something had delayed him. I told my roommate to go back first and immediately called Victor. The instant the call connected, a familiar female voice suddenly rang out from the other end, teasing loudly, "Everyone, quiet down. Victor's fiancée is calling." It was Camila. Victor spoke lazily. "Stop messing around. Emma isn't my fiancée." "Oh, then what is she?" "Just my little sister." My heart sank instantly. The voices on the other end grew loud again, full of teasing laughter and noise. I suddenly spoke and asked Victor, "Didn't we agree tonight that you'd pick me up and we'd eat late-night snacks together? Where are you?" A few traces of laughter colored his voice. First, he softly shushed the people over there. Only then did he answer me casually. "Was it tonight? I forgot. Our dorm already made plans to eat together tonight." "Then why didn't you tell me in advance?" "Emma." Victor interrupted me. His voice was clearly very light, but the words he spoke landed on my heart like a heavy hammer. "Everyone brought their partners. If I bring you too, it wouldn't be appropriate." The words stuck in my throat. All the emotions that had been ready to burst out seemed to be gripped tightly by a pair of large hands. My mind went blank in an instant. I could not find words, nor could I pull out any emotion to reply to Victor. I just stood there quietly, as if in that moment, I had suddenly received a clear verdict. Shock, embarrassment, sudden realization. I bit my lip hard, suppressing the sadness that came belatedly, not letting the person on the other end of the phone hear even the slightest trace of my dishevelment. His voice carried a hint of drunkenness. Perhaps it was the truth spoken after drinking. "Now we're both already adults, and we're about to graduate too. You shouldn't keep carrying the title of Victor's fiancée. Emma, you should properly enjoy your youth. Meet more friends. And you should also," he paused, "you should also find a boy and have a relationship." I was silent. Victor was silent too. Someone on the other end shouted his name loudly, and he answered. I only heard Victor's softened tone suddenly rise a degree, as if he had breathed a sigh of relief and was offering one final comfort. "Don't worry, in the future, if you run into any problem you can't handle, come find me. Your brother will be there whenever you call." "Okay. All right. I'll make plans with you again in a couple of days." Victor's side became noisy again. "I still have things going on here. I'll hang up first." With a beep, the feelings I had hidden deep in my heart for many years were cut off. The emotions I had forcefully suppressed rushed out impatiently. The long-lost intensity of those emotions left me at a loss. Like a puppet on strings, I put away my phone and walked forward in a daze. Not paying attention, I bumped straight into a passerby and then fell heavily backward onto the ground. My palm pressed against the freshly trimmed lawn, stinging with burning pain. "Sorry." The passerby picked up my backpack and handed it back to me. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. I wasn't watching where I was going and bumped into you. Sorry." My eyes grew hot. I did not lift my head. I hurriedly took the backpack and left. That night, the girlfriend of one of Victor's roommates posted a group photo. In the photo, Camila was slightly bent over, standing behind Victor's chair. One hand formed a peace sign, and her smile was bright. Victor leaned back, tilting his head with a smile that was not quite a smile. I opened the photo, then closed it. When I was about to open it again, I discovered that the girl had already deleted the post. Facing the empty moments page, the image of Victor and Camila standing close together still floated before my eyes. Some things were always understood too late. For example, I had once thought Victor liked me too, but now I finally understood. He did not. Everything in the past had merely been my own wishful thinking. Chapter 07. When I woke up the next day, I saw that someone had sent me a WeChat friend request. "I'm Oscar. We took the wrong backpacks last night." I thought for a moment and quickly realized that the person I had bumped into after evening self-study last night was him. Oscar was in the same year and the same school as me, but in a different major. He studied network engineering. In freshman year, I had once participated in the ACM freshman competition with him, and we had both joined the school's training group. He had probably found my contact information from the group. After I accepted the friend request, Oscar sent a message almost instantly. "I have a full schedule this morning. We're in the same advanced mathematics class for periods 3 and 4. Should we meet then and swap backpacks?" I had just woken up, so my thoughts were still a little sluggish. I replied instinctively, "Okay." Only after replying did I belatedly sense that something was slightly off. He seemed certain that I had no other classes in the morning. Otherwise, he should have first asked whether I needed the books in my backpack. But I had no interest in digging into it. There were many ways to find out our class schedule. Just as I exited the chat box, I saw Oscar send another message. I saw that your campus card is also in the backpack. If you need it for breakfast at the cafeteria, you can use mine first. Me, it's fine. I'll use my roommate's. The chat box showed the other party is typing for quite a while. Oscar, okay. I went to check the backpack. Oscar's backpack was the same model as mine, and both were black. Taking the wrong one was understandable. I opened the inner lining zipper, and sure enough, I saw his campus card. In the ID photo on the campus card with a blue background, the boy wore the simplest white t-shirt. The dark broken hair on his forehead lightly covered his thick brows. His deep brown eyes looked at the camera, his lips flat, his expression serious. His features were three-dimensional and handsome, with a faint mole at the tail of his brow. I had run into Oscar many times, but this was the first time I had carefully looked at his appearance. My impression of him had always been faint and serious. In the training group, I had once discussed academic problems with Oscar remotely. He never sent unnecessary words and always kept to the matter at hand. When we were preparing for the ACM freshman competition in freshman year, our class advisor specifically mentioned Oscar to me, saying he was my strongest opponent among the freshmen. But in that competition, I was the only grand prize winner, and Oscar was one of the two first prize winners. Later, the person chosen to team up with the senior students to participate in the provincial competition was also me. It was from that time on that I began to have an impression of Oscar. Chapter 08. Not long after I arrived at the classroom, I received another message from Oscar. It's a little far from the computer lab. I'll arrive a bit late. Can you save me a seat? My roommate and I always sat toward the back during advanced mathematics class, so I usually did not pay much attention to where Oscar sat. I asked him, "Where do you want to sit?" "Oscar, wherever is convenient for you." I looked around the classroom. Only the first 3 rows were still empty, so I saved him a seat on the left side of the 3rd row. "Emma." Someone softly called my name. I turned my head and met the person's eyes. Those eyes were watery and bright, different from the calm coldness in his ID photo. They carried a little more vividness and life. Oscar had come in through the back door. Judging from how afraid he was of being late, he must have run over. His cheeks were flushed slightly red after exercise. His breathing was also somewhat unsteady when he spoke. "Thank you for saving me a seat." He placed his backpack on the empty seat beside me and pushed over a bottle of coconut water. I took out his backpack, only to see that Oscar had already sat down beside me. I had just been about to stop him when he also saw the yellow backpack inside the desk compartment. I said, "This seat is my roommate's. The seat I saved for you is over there." I pointed toward the seat in front, where a book and a blue cup had been placed. Oscar's eyelashes lowered slightly. He quickly stood up. "Sorry." As he left, I vaguely saw the tips of his ears turn pink. Lily, who had been standing there watching the show for quite a while, sat down while holding back laughter. Looking at him up close, Oscar really is pretty handsome. No wonder that junior girl chased him so passionately before. She was talking about a freshman from the School of Foreign Languages. I had an impression of that incident. That junior girl had even chased him to the large lectures our classes attended together several times, waiting there for him. One time, the junior girl was called on by the teacher to answer a question, but she did not know the answer. The teacher asked for her student number. The junior girl stammered, and it was the other students who knew the situation who laughingly told the truth. Because of that incident, Oscar was even privately pulled aside by the teacher for a talk. Chapter 09. That weekend, I went to the rock climbing gym. In the past, Victor always came with me. This time, I did not call him, but when I arrived, I saw Victor there too. Also present were one of his roommates, Justin, and Camila. At this moment, Victor was helping Camila fasten her safety harness. She held a helmet in her arms, one hand on her waist. I did not know what Camila had said, but Victor, who was slightly bent over, laughed softly and raised his hand to ruffle her hair. His phone was in his pocket. The bright yellow phone charm showed on the outside, swaying slightly with his movements. This scene suddenly felt even more glaring than the lights on the ceiling of the gym. I had thought that after so many days had passed, after cutting off contact with Victor and no longer paying attention to any of his updates, my emotions would no longer fluctuate. But when I personally saw the intimate scene between him and Camila, my chest still tightened uncontrollably. The noisy sounds of laughter and play in the gym surged toward me like a tide, with unstoppable force. They pressed down on me until my head spun, and I almost could not breathe. Instinctively, I chose to escape and turned around. It was Justin who discovered me first. "Huh, Emma?" I did not stop walking, but then I heard him shout loudly again, "Victor, your little sister is here too. Emma, come play with us." Several people in the gym looked over after hearing him. At this point, pretending I had not heard would only make it seem like I was covering something up. I turned back and met Victor's gaze directly. At first, a trace of inexplicable panic flashed through his eyes, but very quickly, he became calm again. "Emma, you came today too." He smiled at me. It was clearly still that same careless smile from before. But at this moment, I sensed a hint of unfamiliarity in it. Camila seemed to lose her footing. She let out a low cry and hurriedly grabbed Victor beside her. The latter was quick to react and reached out his hand. Their hands clasped tightly together. The young man and young woman looked into each other's eyes as if no one else were around, their gazes lingering and tender. Victor clicked his tongue lightly. "I told you to be careful." Camila punched him once in the chest. "Hey, it's my first time rock climbing. Can't I be nervous?" "You can." He laughed, his expression especially indulgent. I lifted my head and met Camila's bright smile. She said, "Senior, I heard you've been learning rock climbing for almost 3 years. Those two are both men and aren't as careful as us girls. Could you teach me?" "Me? No." Camila froze for a moment, and the corners of her lips slowly flattened. She seemed not to have expected me to refuse so directly. The atmosphere froze. Justin, off to the side, awkwardly found an excuse to move away. Only Victor remained calm, still wearing a smile as he looked at me, as if probing, as if helpless. It seemed as if a very, very long time passed, yet also as if only an instant had gone by. Victor moved his gaze away from mine and looked at Camila. He said, "Emma doesn't have much strength. If you accidentally fall later, she won't be able to catch you." Only then did Camila's smile bloom again. "Then forget it. You should teach me instead. I'm thick-skinned and tough, so it doesn't matter if I get hurt. But I can't drag Senior down. At least you know yourself." They turned back around. Camila blatantly glanced at me, like a general who had won a great victory, bold and triumphant. The ringtone of my phone suddenly rang at that moment. I did not even look at the caller's name before answering immediately. "Emma, can you help me check whether my USB drive was left in your backpack?" "Huh? It's Oscar." "Okay, I'll go check." I went to the storage locker and searched my backpack. I found it in the side pocket. "The black one?" "Yes," I said. "Do you need it urgently?" "I'm not at school right now. How about when I get back?" I paused, as if possessed. A shameful thought suddenly popped into my mind. I gave up my original plan. "I'm at the rock climbing gym right now. Are you free to come get it?" "Okay, I'll come over." Chapter 10. Oscar arrived very quickly, so quickly that I suspected he might have already been nearby. When I handed the USB drive to him, I did something unprecedented and asked, "Do you have anything to do later?" He looked into my eyes. "No. Have you ever done rock climbing before? Want to climb together?" Ripples spread through Oscar's clear eyes. I avoided the deeper meaning in his gaze. "Sure, I'm a beginner. Teach me." I let out a breath of relief. "Okay." Oscar was indeed a beginner. When he came in, my former coach even greeted him and asked why he had come for class today. Oscar did not explain much. He only said he had come with a friend. The coach still had a class later and told us not to do anything too intense. Inside the gym, Camila's laughter was mixed with panic. Victor was not far below her, protecting her. I turned my head away and suddenly crashed into Oscar's eyes. The clarity and understanding in his eyes made me freeze. Feeling guilty, I handed him a helmet. Oscar smiled lightly, the trace of calm in his eyes, the kind that made me uncomfortable, spread out softly. "Teacher, I'll be troubling you later." Oscar had very good stamina. Every time I looked back, I could see him not far below me. Rather than saying I was teaching him, it was more like he was protecting me. When we came down to rest, I had just taken the towel Oscar handed me and wiped my sweat when someone on the other side handed over a bottle of water. Victor's voice sounded at just the right time. Drink some water and rest. At some point, he had already removed the protective gear from his body and was standing behind us. The words were spoken to me, but his eyes looked toward Oscar. Who is he? I took a small step in Oscar's direction and answered first. My friend. Victor looked at me again, the corner of his lips curving slightly. A few traces of amusement rippled in his eyes, as if he wanted to see through my thoughts. Behind me, Oscar spoke. Emma, I'm going to the restroom first. After Oscar left, Victor unscrewed the cap and handed the water to me again. When did you make this friend? I've never heard you mention him before. Recently, I found a place to sit down and took a sip of water. His grades are very good. Victor sat down beside me and turned his head to stare at me. I kept looking ahead. Not far away, Camila, who had just come out of the restroom, ran into Oscar and looked surprised for a few seconds. Oscar did not stop. Sensing that Victor was about to speak again, I spoke first. Do you like Camila? Victor seemed to freeze. After a long moment, he propped his chin on his hand and laughed faintly. I guess so. The string pulled tight in my heart was completely cut at this moment. What's wrong, Emma? Just as Victor's hand was about to land on the top of my head, I stood up and avoided it. I'm going to the restroom too. The smile on Camila's face grew wider and wider as she approached. When we brushed past each other, a low cold snort clearly entered my ears. When it ended, Victor and the others still had not left. They deliberately came over. Victor said, Emma, we're going to eat. Why don't you and your friend come along too? Didn't I say last time that we'd eat late-night snacks together another day? Why not today? After he said those words on the phone that night, I had held no expectations for the another day he casually mentioned afterward. I replied, no, we still have something to do. Camila suddenly turned to Oscar. Oscar, back then so many girls asked for your contact information and you refused all of us. Was it because you already had someone you liked? Her words carried a pointed meaning. Oscar did not play along. He frowned slightly. Who are you? Camila's raised lips froze. Oscar continued. Whether I give strangers my contact information is my own business. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Victor spoke lazily. You asked him for his contact too? He was asking Camila. Camila escaped the embarrassment of Oscar's retort and hurriedly said, back then I followed you around like a little shadow. But you kept ignoring me. Was I not allowed to switch targets and try pursuing someone else? If you switch targets, does that mean you'll succeed? Camila tilted her head slightly and stared at him with a smile. What do you think? They understood each other without words. I turned my head away. Oscar broke the atmosphere between them. Sorry, Emma and I still have something to do. We need to get back to school in a hurry, so we'll leave first. He glanced at me, and I followed him. On the subway back to school, there were many people. There was only one empty seat left. Oscar let me sit. He stood in front of me, slightly turning sideways to avoid my knees, which were pressed together. We tacitly said nothing. Only when we reached the school gate did I confess. Sorry. Today, you became my shield. It's fine, I know. Next time, if you need any help from me, you can come to me, Emma. He suddenly sighed and stopped walking. I turned around. Oscar stood beneath the dense camphor tree. A breeze happened to pass, and the faint, cool honey fragrance in the air mingled with the rich woody scent. An emotion I could not quite make out appeared in his eyes. His voice seemed both far and near. Emma, you don't always have to be so polite with me. I was willing to be your shield. Chapter 11. I was not stupid. I knew very clearly what Oscar's words meant. After that, I did not meet him alone again. When we ran into each other in class, he seemed even more composed than I was, calmly nodding at me in greeting. Later, I ran into him in more and more classes. Oscar and his friends either sat in the row in front of me or behind me. Even in the IELTS class I had signed up for, he was there. Once, when I came out of the library, I ran into the junior girl who had pursued him before blocking his path. The junior girl pressed him. You said before that you already had someone you liked. But I've observed you for a long time and haven't seen you pursuing any girl. Were you lying? Oscar politely took a step back, his tone serious. I have no need to invent a lie. Then tell me, who is that person? I want to see where exactly I lost. A disapproving expression appeared on his face. You each have different strengths. It's just that the type I like is not yours. I appreciate your admiration for me, but I don't want my personal feelings to bring her unnecessary trouble. I hope you'll understand. So you're secretly in love? Hearing this, Oscar lifted his eyes and caught sight of me. After only a few seconds, he looked away. He coughed lightly, and a few traces of panic entered his voice. All right, now that things have been made clear, I hope you won't come looking for me again in the future. I also want to leave a good impression in front of the person I like. The junior girl sounded a little self-reproachful. I'm sorry, I've bothered you for so long. She walked a couple of steps, wiped her eyes twice, then turned back and said to him, but senior, you have to do your best. Don't just keep secretly liking her. You're not even as brave as I am. Okay, thank you. Only after she had walked far away did I come out. Originally, I wanted to handle it tacitly with silence like usual. But in the end, I gave up that thought and walked straight up to Oscar. Some things should be made clear as early as possible, not dragged on. Let's talk. He nodded. Then his gaze fell behind me. Just as I was about to turn back and look, Oscar stepped aside and let me go first. You haven't eaten yet? Let's go to the second cafeteria. We can talk while eating. After putting down the tray, I spoke concisely. Oscar, I do admire you, but I don't mean it in that way. He was very calm. I know, but I'd like to apply for a chance. I don't want to use anyone to replace someone else. Oscar lifted his eyes, his voice low and soft. Emma, could you not reject me so decisively? My looks are passable, and my studies are decent. I also maintain the proper distance from other members of the opposite sex. Although because of my personality, I don't talk much to outsiders. Medically speaking, both my mind and body are healthy. You said before that if I needed anything, I could ask you for help. Now I regret not telling you directly that day. I want to apply for a chance to be ordinary friends with you. Can you help me with that? The young man's eyelashes lowered slightly, looking pitiful and persuasive. Not far away, a familiar laugh drifted over. I blinked and replied, okay, application approved. Oscar's brows lifted slightly, and he smiled. Sunlight fell in through the window, spilling over him. The person who had always seemed cool and distant suddenly became bright in a rare way. Oscar was right. He really was quite good-looking. Chapter 12. Oscar was a person with a strong sense of boundaries. When classmates caught him and me together in the library and looked at us with ambiguous eyes, he would take the initiative to explain. Emma is also preparing to study abroad. I just happened to have some questions to ask her. After it happened a few more times, everyone got used to it. At first, there had still been some romantic speculation, but after seeing that the two of us rarely had any other contact aside from studying, they positioned us as study abroad partners. As summer vacation approached, Auntie sent me a message asking whether I would go back during the break. I said I wanted to go back to Xinjiang for a while. Xinjiang, my hometown. That night, Victor called me. You're not busy this summer? Going back to Xinjiang? I am busy. I'll go back for about a week, then return to school to work on my professor's new project. Victor said, I haven't been to your hometown in a long time either. What day are you leaving? I'll go back with you. It might not be very convenient. Victor was silent for a few seconds. I looked toward the sky outside the balcony. The bright moon hung high, and stars dotted the sky. He laughed. What? Now I can't even go to your hometown to visit? I'll transfer you the plane ticket money later. Don't worry. Your brother won't take advantage of you. Victor hung up on his own and immediately transferred me 5,000. In the past, when we went out to have fun, I was always the one who made the plans and booked the tickets. I had his ID number, and could even recite that string of digits backward. After booking the tickets, I sent him a screenshot. His birthday happened to fall on those few days too. On the day we returned to Xinjiang, I ran into Oscar in the waiting lounge. Before I could say anything, he took the initiative to hold his ID card up in front of my eyes. I'm not following you. I'm from Xinjiang. What a coincidence. I looked suspiciously at his address. It really was. Even more coincidentally, his home was in the same district as mine. His clear, cool eyes stared at me, and he smiled very lightly. Yes. What a coincidence. Maybe we were classmates before too. Oscar suddenly looked behind me, and his smile disappeared. The person you're waiting for seems to have arrived. I had just turned around, before I could clearly see anyone, when a crisp laugh reached me first. Senior! Camila, dressed in a bright yellow dress, waved toward us. Beside her was Victor, walking with a lazy, casual pace. Behind them were two other couples, Victor's roommates and their girlfriends. Like this. They looked exactly like three couples traveling together. Seeing that Victor had not come alone, for some reason, I secretly let out a breath of relief. When they reached us, Victor first looked toward Oscar, his brow lifting slightly. He's going too? There was an inexplicable displeasure in his tone. Oscar's expression did not change. So many people can go to Xinjiang. Why can't I? Their gazes met. Invisible flames of war spread between them. Camila suddenly inserted herself between the two of them and said with a smile, "Everyone can go. Everyone can go. Traveling is livelier with more people." She lightly tugged the hem of Victor's shirt. Oscar quietly took half a step back and stood beside me. There was still more than half an hour before boarding. Their group started playing games together. Victor did not play, but Camila pulled him over to teach her. I got up to get some water, and someone followed me step by step from behind. I did not look back. Victor played with his sunglasses in his hand, half leaning against the wall as he looked at me. "Are you angry?" No, I truly was not angry. At this moment, he was giving an after-the-fact explanation. They had been discussing going somewhere during summer vacation. They happened to hear that I was going to Xinjiang and insisted on coming along too. Oh, Victor suddenly lowered his head and leaned closer, as if wanting to see my expression clearly. I abruptly stepped back and frowned while pinching the paper cup. "What are you doing? Are you really not angry?" No, I crushed the empty paper cup and tossed it into the trash can. I lifted my eyes and looked at him quietly. "Or is it that you want to see me angry?" The careless smile on Victor's face froze. His eyes gradually darkened, but after only a few seconds, he rubbed his nose and laughed. "Fine, fine, fine. If you're not angry, then you're not angry. Out of habit." The hand holding his sunglasses subconsciously moved as if to lightly tap my forehead. I turned and dodged, leaving behind one sentence, "Mind your boundaries." Behind me, there came an extremely soft tisk. Chapter 13. Unlike previous trips to Xinjiang, Victor did not ask to stay at my home this time. He had booked a hotel in advance with his friends. We parted ways at the airport. On the second day after returning home, I went to the cemetery to visit my parents. Unexpectedly, I discovered that a bouquet of flowers had already been placed before the tombstone. The flowers were very fresh, and there were still droplets of water on the petals. I looked around but did not see anyone else. The only apartment my family had was transferred to my name by uncle when I had just come of age. Over the past 2 days, Victor had rarely posted on Moments a group photo of all of them, with the location set to Xinjiang. Perhaps Auntie saw it and asked me, "Emma, you didn't go out with them?" I replied no. We chatted idly for a few more sentences. Only then did she ask, "Emma, is Victor dating someone?" Me, "I'm not too sure about that." The other party is typing stayed on the screen for a long time. "Auntie, Emma, no matter what happens in the future, in Auntie's heart, you are my daughter. I understand. Ever since I first entered Victor's home, his parents had always treated me very well. Even though I had once had the most malicious suspicions about them, their attitude toward me had never changed. On Victor's birthday, he sent me a message saying we should eat dinner together that night. In the afternoon, I went out to buy a cake. When I came back and opened the door, I heard noise coming from inside. I froze for a moment. I had brought Victor back here before. He knew the password to my home. Just then, Victor's message came in. "I brought them to your place. They wanted to personally cook a table of food for me to celebrate my birthday." At this moment, energetic music was playing in the living room. In the kitchen, 2 couples were bustling around busily. Camila stood not far behind them, holding a camera and taking photos of them. Victor was nowhere to be seen. The girl standing in front of the kitchen sink picking vegetables said tactfully. Why don't you put the camera back? It's not really good to touch someone else's things without asking. Camila imitated the sound of a shutter with her mouth. Click. Oh. I'm not really taking photos. I'm just holding it for fun. Didn't Victor say Emma's mother used to be a war correspondent? This camera should be her mother's. So I'm just playing with it for a bit. I'll put it back right away. The anger that surged up the instant I opened the door rushed straight to my head, not even bothering to change my shoes. I rushed over in 2 or 3 steps and snatched the camera back. The wrist strap was half wrapped around Camila's hand, and the force of my pull made her stumble. She lunged toward me, and together with the cake I was holding in my other hand, we fell to the ground. Camila cried out in pain. The people in the kitchen hurried out to help her up. I was checking the camera when my shoulder was suddenly yanked back by someone. The force was so strong that I could not help frowning. When I turned my head, I saw Victor looking at me with a frown of displeasure. Emma, that was too much. Couldn't you talk properly? Did you have to use your hands? Protecting the camera. I stared at him and asked word by word. Who allowed her to touch my family's belongings without permission? Isn't it just? His gaze lowered, as if he had only just clearly seen what I was holding in my arms. His words got stuck. He turned to Camila. Camila, apologize. Camila, who had been helped up, had slightly red eyes and bit her lip. It's just a camera. I didn't break it. Speak properly. Apologize. Only then did she mutter quickly and unwillingly. I'm sorry, okay? Then Victor looked back at me again. Just as he was about to speak, I said, I don't accept it. Victor quietly met my gaze. I did not know what he thought of, but his furrowed brows gradually relaxed, and his hand subconsciously moved as if to cover the top of my head. I quickly stepped back. His hand froze. Then he sighed softly, and half a trace of helpless amusement appeared in his eyes. Emma, we're all friends. She didn't know you treasured this camera so much. Besides, she didn't turn it on or break it. You're wrong. She is your friend, not mine. I have no obligation to tolerate her. Chapter 14. The smile that had rippled in Victor's eyes quickly faded. He tugged at the corner of his lips in a smile that did not reach his eyes. Fine. My fault. I didn't manage my friend properly. The atmosphere froze in a stalemate. The others tried to mediate and smooth things over. I took a deep breath. Today was Victor's birthday, and I did not want to argue with him in my home either. I turned and walked toward the study. Camila, who was being supported toward the sofa, brushed past me. She muttered softly. What's the big deal? The upbringing of a martyr's child isn't that great either. Sure enough, without parents to teach her, my footsteps stopped where I stood. Victor was the first to interrupt her with a low growl. Camila, shut up. You're yelling at me again? Camila's eyes grew even redder, as if she felt extremely wronged. Camila, were you about to say that because I don't have parents and no one taught me, I have no manners? I stared at her coldly. Is your upbringing taking other people's belongings in someone else's home without permission? Taking without asking is theft. Today, I could have called the police to handle this matter and then asked the police to contact your parents and ask whether this is how they taught you. Or are you like me, with no parents and no one to teach you? Camila's eyes instantly blazed with anger, and she kicked the cake by her foot. The cake inside the box fell apart into pieces. Emma, who allowed you to talk about my parents? I interrupted her impatiently and turned to Victor. And you too, Victor. I said each word clearly. Is it interesting to treat my parents' affairs as casual conversation between you and your friends? Also, your parents took care of me for so long. When she says I have no one to teach me and no upbringing, she is insulting your parents too, and you have no reaction at all? Perhaps because he had never seen me lose my temper before. Victor's expression was blank for an instant, as if he had not reacted. Emma, my gaze moved between him and Camila. I laughed lightly, with mockery and sarcasm. Victor, the fact that you got into Z University's law school proves there's nothing wrong with your intelligence. I don't believe you can't see that this friend of yours has been hostile toward me since the first time she met me. Now, I don't care what kind of relationship you two have or how far it has developed. I want to clarify one thing. You and I, Victor, are exactly as you said before, only siblings. That's all. I'm very busy. I don't have time to get involved in your love-hate drama. I walked to the entrance and opened the door wider. Now, please take your things and leave my home. A trace of inexplicable panic flashed across Victor's face. But in the end, stubbornness still prevailed. His face darkened little by little. Emma, do you have to make everyone unhappy on my birthday? I do. After a few seconds of silence, Victor let out a scoff. Fine, we'll leave. Very soon, the group packed up their things and left. They took the ruined cake with them. The room fell quiet. A long-lost sense of loss pressed down on me like heavy mountains. Inappropriately, I thought of the spring festival in 8th grade, afraid that I would not be used to a northern spring festival. Victor's whole family came back with me to celebrate New Year in my hometown. At that time, my cousin from my eldest uncle's family mocked me, saying I was a child no one wanted, and that even Victor's family did not truly treat me well. Victor kicked open the door and rushed in. He got into a fight with my cousin. Afterward, both of them were scolded by the elders. Late that night, Victor knocked on my window, holding a lit sparkler in his hand. Tiny flames burned through a corner of the dark night, also lighting up his bruised and swollen face. Emma, don't listen to your cousin's nonsense. You're not a child no one wants. From now on, he isn't your brother. I, Victor, am your brother. I will always stand on your side. People were always greedy and never satisfied. After being safe and steady for too long, in the end, I still longed for things that never should have belonged to me. Chapter 15. During my senior year, I was so busy that my feet barely touched the ground. I also rarely returned to Xinqing or Beijing. Auntie came to school to visit me twice. Every time she wanted to call Victor out to eat with us. He was out of town with his professor. Victor had been recommended for graduate school. He and I had not contacted each other for a long time. One time, Auntie even sighed and said, "You two are both so busy. The next time you meet, could it be at one of your weddings?" Victor had previously posted a photo of him and Camila together on Moments, officially announcing their relationship. I smiled and said, "Then I'll have to prepare the wedding gift money in advance." When I received the admission letter from the National University of Singapore, I finally let out a breath of relief. Oscar sent me congratulations immediately. He had received an offer from the University of Toronto. Only later, among all the congratulations, did I see Victor's message, "Congratulations." I replied, "Thank you." Very soon, the words the other party is typing appeared in the chat box. I exited the chat. Victor did not send another message either. On the day I went to Singapore, I unexpectedly ran into Oscar at the airport. A black backpack hung from his shoulder, and his smile carried a deliberately feigned ease. What a coincidence. I was planning to go to Singapore for a trip before school starts. Perhaps because I temporarily had no academic pressure, my mood was rarely so relaxed. I did not expose his little thoughts. What a coincidence. Then let's travel together. Although Oscar said he was going there to travel, he still accompanied me to the university first. He had looked up matters such as renting a place in advance. It made him seem like the one who would be living there long term. Only after everything was settled did we truly travel around together. On the day Oscar left, I sent him to the airport. Before heading to the waiting lounge, he suddenly stopped. Around us were travelers hugging or kissing. Oscar opened his arms slightly toward me. "Emma, see you next time." I stepped into his embrace and smelled a very faint, cool fragrance of grass and wood. "Okay, see you next time." The days of studying abroad were busy and fulfilling. Whenever Oscar had a break, he would come over, calling it absorbing academic knowledge from another university. When my classmates and friends ran into us and teased him, he no longer cleared up the relationship the way he had during undergraduate years. Instead, he openly admitted, "Yes, I'm Emma's pursuer." My classmates teased that among several pursuers, my attitude toward him was the best. Oscar replied, "Then that is truly my honor." Oscar's persistence was clear to everyone. For holidays and birthdays, he would prepare gifts in advance and send them over. Even when I casually posted academic discussions and requests for help online, he would do everything he could to understand them before passing the information on to me. I did not reject his approach, but I still had concerns. I told Oscar honestly. Instead, he let out a breath of relief. "Good, at least it's not like before, when you directly rejected me." I laughed. "Don't you think I'm stringing you along?" Stringing along isn't the right phrase. Liking you is my own wishful thinking. I have to pay something for what I willingly choose. Since I'm pursuing you, then at the very least, you should let me display my abilities in front of you. I hope that, to you, my existence is something that adds beauty to what is already good. During my second year studying abroad, on my birthday, Oscar's gift did not arrive early. I guessed he would probably come to Singapore. Sure enough, before class had even ended, I received a message from Oscar saying he was waiting outside my door. I replied, "Don't you know my door password? It's raining outside. Why didn't you go in and wait?" "Oscar, it's okay. I have an umbrella. This is your personal space. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to go in by myself." The way back was hurried. My friend smiled and said, "That one from Toronto is here again? We're celebrating your birthday later. Should we bring him along?" "I'll bring him. I'll go back and pick him up first." Outside the school gate, before I got into the car, I suddenly heard a pure northern accent. "Emma." My friend and I turned back at the sound. The umbrella lifted, and I saw a tall man standing beneath the fine drizzle, holding an umbrella. There was also a black suitcase by Victor's feet. He strode toward us with long legs. My friend whispered by my ear, "A handsome guy." "Another pursuer?" I replied seriously. "Stop joking. This is my brother." As soon as the words fell, Victor stopped in front of us. My friend waved goodbye to him. "Goodbye, Emma's brother." Victor's eyes lowered slightly, and the emotions in them were like the dampness of this endless rainy season, impossible to dry beneath the sun. The curtain of rain separated us. He said softly, "Happy birthday." "Thank you. I've just arrived and haven't found a place to stay yet." "Could I?" I interrupted him and took out my phone. "Do you need me to book a hotel for you?" "Sure, I'll take a look." He fell quiet. When it was time to fill in the guest information, I asked, "What was your ID number again?" The person who had been silent all along suddenly said, "Emma, I broke up." "Oh," I lifted my eyes. "Tell me your ID number." Victor tugged at the corner of his lips, then let out a faint hiss. Only then did I notice that there was an injury on his face. The road was slippery. I fell. "Oh," he laughed, like self-mockery, and also like helplessness. "No need to book a hotel. I'll go back later." "Okay, then I'll leave first. I still have something to do." I turned around and heard the person behind me say, "Emma, I'm sorry." His low, shallow voice was carried away by the slanting wind and fine rain, quickly disappearing. Sure enough, at my door, I saw Oscar holding an umbrella to avoid the rain. I let him inside and turned on the lights, only to see that there was also an injury on his face. I raised my brow. Oscar held a towel and wiped his half-wet hair, staring straight over at me. He took the initiative to admit, "I got into a fight with someone today." "Young blood." "Huh? You flatter me." As he sat on the sofa wiping his hair, his eyes were half lowered, and the corner of his lips held a comfortable smile. Outside the window, the rain pattered softly. Inside, the kettle that had been slowly boiling suddenly whistled. Oscar lifted his head at the sound, and the warm yellow light shattered into thousands of pieces in his eyes. For some reason, my heartbeat quickened a few times, pulled by an unknown emotion. As if possessed, I kissed him on the lips. Oscar's motion of wiping his hair stopped. At first, I did not know where he was looking. His gaze moved back from behind me. First came realization. Then slowly, disbelief colored his eyes. Belatedly, my face grew hot because of this frivolous action. The kettle kept whistling, and my heartbeat grew more intense. Oscar's gaze slid from my eyes to my lips. He restrained himself and swallowed. "Emma, why did you suddenly reward me and stamp me as yours?" His words made me laugh. "Oscar, I heard it's snowing in Toronto. I want to go there and see the snow." His smile bloomed. "Okay." Extra 1, Oscar. Chapter 1. The rain in Singapore that night made Oscar involuntarily think of the day he first met Emma. It was at Emma's father's funeral. Her father was a firefighter, and he had once saved Oscar from a fire. Back then, Oscar was only 9 years old when Nestor carried him out. He was so frightened that he kept crying. Nestor took a golden badge from his pocket and pinned it on him. The words "glory" were engraved on it. Nestor praised Oscar, saying he had been the bravest child that day, so he was rewarding him with a military badge. Only then did Oscar stop crying. Afterward, Oscar often went to the fire station to find Nestor. Sometimes he brought snacks for him, sometimes he took his certificates there to show off. Once, he overheard Nestor praising his daughter to someone else, saying she had ranked first in her grade again. Oscar became competitive. After every exam, he would go over and ask whether Emma's school had held exams too, and what score she had gotten. Nestor laughed helplessly. "When I have time one day, I'll take you to meet my Emma." He had not expected that the first time he met Emma would be at Nestor's funeral. The rain that day was especially long and lingering. Emma stood in the rain holding an old, worn little floral umbrella, her eyes numb as she looked toward the crying crowd. Oscar followed his parents over. When no one was paying attention, he moved closer to her bit by bit. She was very thin, and her face was exceptionally pale, making her red, swollen, hollow eyes stand out even more. He wanted to imitate the adults, pat her shoulder, and say comfortingly, "My condolences." But before the words could leave his mouth, his tears fell first. Perhaps sensing something, Emma lifted her eyes and looked over, catching the sight of him with tears streaming down his face. Then she handed him a tissue. "Don't cry." Oscar took it and gave an After a long time, Emma's hoarse voice sounded again. "Thank you." Chapter 2. Emma's quiet appearance that day was like a seed, buried deep in Oscar's heart. When he asked his parents to transfer him to Emma's school, he heard that she had already transferred north to study, on the honor roll at No. 1 Middle School. Her ID photo was still there. In the blue background photo, the 14-year-old girl had curved brows and eyes, smiling brightly. When the school took down the old honor roll, he secretly cut out that photo. Later, he found out news about Emma. She had gone to Beijing. He searched through all the middle schools and high schools in Beijing, and finally, in sophomore year of high school, he saw her in a video posted on the official website of a key high school in Beijing. Emma had grown taller, and her hair had grown longer too. She wore a school uniform and stood beneath the national flag, delivering a speech. Every word and sentence was resonant and powerful. Her eyes were bright and full of spirit. Oscar watched the video, which was less than a minute long, over and over again many times. He even downloaded it to his phone. After years apart, Emma's grades were still outstanding. During summer vacation, under the excuse of traveling, he went to Beijing with his friends. Oscar made his way to Beijing High School. He only wanted to try his luck, thinking perhaps he might be able to see her. He had brought a safety charm from Xinjiang, one he had obtained for Emma. In the bookstore at the school gate, he ran into a boy who looked like a student. Oscar went up to ask, and by coincidence, the other person was from Beijing High School. After he handed the safety charm to that person and explained his purpose, the other person looked at him a few more times. The boy turned and walked toward a group of teenagers, his tone carrying laughter. "Hey, Victor, someone else brought something for your Emma." Victor sneered. "Who is it? So timid? Isn't our Emma right here? He doesn't dare come over?" Oscar instinctively turned around in panic and hid. Only after everyone had left did he come out. There were several girls in that group, but for some reason, he could tell at a glance that the one wearing a light blue dress was Emma. She walked beside a tall boy, her long black hair blown into disarray by the wind. As if sensing something, Emma turned her head and looked over. That glance was very faint. Almost in the next second, the boy beside her pressed a hand against her head and turned it back. Oscar's heart felt as if someone had clenched it tightly. He could not describe that emotion. Chapter 3. Oscar's love was secret, unknown to outsiders. Even his close friends thought he had no desires and wanted nothing except studying. In university, his roommates often complained that the major courses were boring, but he did not feel that way, because he could see Emma almost every day. Compared with high school, his student life had become much brighter. Although he deliberately ignored the rumors about Emma and Victor, those matters still seeped into Oscar's ears from every crack. He was jealous of Victor, as someone who also loved in secret. He understood all too clearly the way Emma looked at Victor. He had originally planned to let this relationship never see the light of day. But thank goodness, Victor gave him a chance. He was not clear about exactly what had happened between them, but once there was a crack in a relationship, it gave others an opportunity to slip in. Whenever he was with Emma, As long as they ran into Victor, Oscar would divert her attention before she noticed. He openly admitted his feelings. He no longer wanted to avoid and turn away like he had years ago. He needed Emma to know the reason he approached her. Chapter 4. During one trip back to Xinqing University, Oscar ran into Emma. This time, it truly was a coincidence. At the same time, he also ran into Victor's group. That time, when he returned to Xinqing, he went as usual to the cemetery to visit Nestor. When he was leaving, he sat in the car and hesitated for a while. He wondered whether Emma would come today too, and if so, whether he should greet her. But when Emma really arrived, Oscar decided not to appear after all. At a time like this, she probably did not want to be disturbed by anyone else. On that rainy day in Singapore, Oscar had actually run into Victor at the gate of Emma's school. His sudden appearance still made Oscar panic for a few seconds, but that feeling passed in an instant. They stood facing each other in the rain curtain. Victor lit a cigarette, looking at Oscar with a smile that was not quite a smile, his tone carrying the arrogance of someone standing above him. "I've given you this much time, and you still haven't won her over?" Oscar instantly swung a fist at him, losing his temper in public for the first time. Victor quickly began fighting with him. In the end, both sides were injured. Afterward, Oscar honestly told Emma about this matter. Inside Emma's little apartment, through the balcony, he caught sight of that familiar figure. The other person stood beneath a large tree without an umbrella, his eyes gloomy as he stared straight over. Only when Emma kissed him did Oscar finally come back to himself, dazed, in disbelief. What followed was an indescribably immense joy. When Emma hugged him, Oscar's gaze once again turned toward the balcony outside, carrying a hint of smug showing off. Beneath the tree, it was empty. The man's figure was nowhere to be seen again. Extra 2, Victor. Chapter 1. When Victor personally saw Emma kiss Oscar, his heart seemed to shrivel for a moment, but very quickly, he regained his calm. A somewhat shameful thought crossed his mind. So what if they were together now? Couples also argued and broke up, just like him and Camila. As long as they were not married, he still had a chance. Victor did not even open an umbrella. He just walked aimlessly along the roadside. The scene of him fighting with Oscar earlier flashed through his mind. He remembered what Oscar had said to him in return. "Since you like Emma, the first thing you should do is respect her. She isn't an object. She is a person with feelings, and she also has the right to make her own choices." Did he like Emma? The Victor now could answer without hesitation. Yes, but many times in the past, his answer had always been no. When friends asked him, he said he only treated her as a little sister. His friends found it strange. "Then why don't you clarify the rumors about you two? All of us can tell that Emma likes you." Victor did not take it seriously and replied, "You don't know how crazy those girls who chase me can be. I'm just using her as a shield for a while." He deliberately ignored the fact that Emma liked him. He enjoyed Emma's feelings, yet never responded directly. He had also always warned himself that Emma was only his little sister. So when Emma truly kept her distance from him, at first, Victor calmly let out a breath of relief. When Oscar appeared beside her, Victor even felt somewhat gratified and thought, sure enough, she was still very obedient. She really had found a boy and intended to have a relationship. Chapter 2. Camila was different from Emma. Camila was bright, bold, passionate, vivid, and energetic. At first, Victor did not like her that way, but after being pestered by her for a long time, for some inexplicable reason, he found her rather interesting. Emma, however, was calm. Her love for him was quiet, and even the way she distanced herself from him was silent. She always handled everything very rationally. Those clear, cool eyes of hers seemed able to see through other people's thoughts at a glance. And yet, she always gave people enough dignity and did not expose them directly. Victor chose Camila without question. When they first got together, the relationship was sweet. As time gradually dragged on, conflicts began to emerge. Camila's temper exploded at the slightest spark, and she was always suspicious of his interactions with other girls for no reason. The person she mentioned most often was Emma, even though he and Emma had not contacted each other for a long time. One time, Victor suddenly thought that if it were Emma, she definitely would not lose control emotionally and make a huge scene. Once this thought appeared, There would be a second time. One time, when Camila made a fuss again and mentioned Emma, Victor was so annoyed that he could no longer bear it. Furious, he snapped back at her. Yes, I do like her. I've liked her since we were little. Are you satisfied now? That time, he and Camila broke up completely. That time, he faced his own heart directly. He liked Emma. In all those seemingly insignificant moments of the past, he had long since fallen for her. Chapter 3. Victor did not dare directly tell anyone what he was thinking. He began to ask about Emma in indirect ways, until one time, when Emma was on the phone with his mother, a female friend on her side suddenly teased, "Emma, who are you talking to? The one from Toronto?" Victor keenly sensed that something was wrong. He went through Emma's posts on Moments and Weibo one by one, and finally discovered news related to Toronto. More than a year earlier, Emma had liked a friend's Weibo post. The other person's location was set to Japan, and the post read, "In transit." In the picture, the plane ticket showed the destination as Toronto. Victor clicked into that person's profile. It was Oscar. At that moment, he panicked. Chapter 4. Victor waited and waited. He waited until Emma and Oscar graduated and returned to the country for work. They were still together. From Emma's Moments and Weibo, he could not see any signs that they had ever argued. But very quickly, he comforted himself again with Emma's personality. She would not openly put something like an argument on display. They had been together for almost 3 years. He did not believe there had been no conflicts. Who would have known that one day, his mother would suddenly inform him, "Your sister is getting engaged. Come back if you have time." Victor's mind went blank for an instant. Which sister? Emma. He hurriedly rushed back, and he was met with the sight of Emma and Oscar being asked by a crowd of relatives to pose in all kinds of ways for photos. She wore a fitted red cheapao, and her smile was brighter than any smile Victor had ever seen on her before. When she saw him, Emma smiled and called out, "Brother, you're back." Oscar, who was beside her, followed her and called him too, "Brother." Victor closed his eyes, as if stung by that festive red. In the end, he still accepted that brother. Chapter 5. Later, Victor thought again. It was only an engagement. They had not gotten a marriage certificate. They could still fall apart at any time. He waited and waited again, and what he waited for was the day of their wedding. This time, Victor was still out of town. He rushed back all the same, but he did not go to the venue. It was as if he was deliberately hiding the truth from himself. As long as he did not witness it with his own eyes, everything was unreal. Unfortunately, that night, through his parents' Moments, he saw videos of their wedding. The short videos came one after another, bit by bit breaking down Victor's psychological defenses. He saw Oscar's many years of secret love, starting from the first combined photo of Oscar and Emma's middle school ID photos, to a photo of Oscar crossing thousands of miles to Beijing in high school and taking a picture with her back in the frame, then to university military training, tennis class, the graduation group photo, and so on. In a few of those photos, Victor saw his own back. In another short video, Emma looked toward the photos flashing across the big screen, her eyes filled with tears. Before a hall full of guests, they expressed their love for each other, embraced, and kissed. Colorful balloons rose into the sky together. The entire hall was filled with blessings. Chapter 6. Victor had originally thought that he was the first to know Emma and the person who had accompanied her the longest. As long as he had patience, he would definitely wait until she turned back. But now, he felt that perhaps he had been wrong. Before Oscar, he suddenly felt defeated. Every step Oscar took, he had persistently chased after Emma, from youthful ignorance to mature steadiness. As for Victor, he had always been waiting for Emma to turn around, but she would never look back again.